Hi guys, it's Anne-Marie with Elemental Alchemist, and I'm here today with my friend Christina. She's a beekeeper. Her alchemy is honeybees, and we're going to talk all about what's all the buzz about. So bees, they represent characteristics of innovation and creativity and wisdom and community and love. And that's why we love bees so much because they're fuzzy and they're fun, and we're going to find out all
Cute.
about them. And they're cute. Yeah, they're cute. We love them. All right. So, Christina, thank you so much for being here with me today. Christina is my crystals and coffee and cards friend. We meet up kind of regularly to see what's going on and connect. So today we're going to connect with the bees, which live in her backyard. So let's see, what's the purpose of the pollinators?
Well, thanks for inviting me, Anne Marie. This is fun.
Thanks.
So, so what's up with the pollinators? I bet we all don't really think about pollinators all that much. But believe it or not, 2 out of every 3 bites of food we eat is dependent on pollination of some sort. So you wouldn't have a lot of your fruits and vegetables. You'd have a lot of like grass to eat, like cows. And well, cows like grass. We don't really like grass. We could still have lettuce and maybe some other leafy greens, but the world would look a lot different without bees. Um, and I like to focus on honeybees because they're easy to manage and keep track of, but there's a lot of different bees in the world that pollinate different things. There's bees that only pollinate one type of flower, and that flower depends on that bee. Honeybees do a lot of variety of different flowers, so they're kind of generalists, but there's thousands and thousands of bees in the world. And we don't really notice them a whole lot unless you're involved with agriculture or like to do a lot of gardening.
I love noticing the bees. I love having them around. I notice when they're not around,
Mhm.
I mean, definitely. So I'm going to jump ahead real quick. EFN, I've seen that in your guidebook. You talked about the different bees I guess, feast on different things. They enjoy different things. Um, why? What draws a pollinator for its purpose?
So usually what draws pollinators to the plant is the color of the flower and the depth of the flower and how interesting it looks to them. So you mentioned EFN, that's extra floral nectaries. So that's a pretty cool thing that is not a flower, but it's kind of like at the base of the stem of some plants and it'll produce like a nectar of sorts. And a lot of like green beans, like green bean plants, they actually have an extra floral nectary. Elderberry, I believe, has an extra floral nectary. So pollinators can use that for a source of nectar, not primarily, but it attracts them by the smell. But in general, pollinators get attracted to plants through their flowering systems. So, what flowers look like to us look totally different to pollinators. I forget what rays on the light spectrum they see, but flowers look like fluorescent colors to them. And
Ultraviolet.
they can even like see if another pollinator has visited that flower or not, depending on how brightly it's shining. So it's actually really cool and really complex. So one can't exist without the other. So bees can't exist without flowers, and flowers, for the most part, can't exist without pollinators. There are some wind pollinated plants, of course, but that doesn't make up the majority of the world. Pollinated plants really do. Um, I don't remember where I was going with that, other than bees rely on flowers and flowers rely on bees.
So with the EFN, is that the same as the stamen inside the flower, or is that different?
No. No, it's actually completely different. Now, this plant doesn't have an extra floral nectary, but extra floral nectaries are usually on the stem, like kind of located down here, and it might just be like a little tiny piece of a stem sticking out, like
Oh, I've seen
weirdly,
that on,
kind of like a
okay.
Y. And a lot of ants use extra floral nectaries, so they just kind of go up the plant and go, "Oh, this kind of smells and looks good," and they suck the extra floral nectary out, like the liquid, and they go on their way. So some bees learn
That's cool.
how to use that, which is really kind of cool.
That is really cool. Can they teach other bees how to use that?
I think so, because
Neat.
bees can communicate where different nectar sources are. They're really good at it's called a waggle dance with honeybees. They come back to the hive and they do a little wiggle, and there's actually a whole science behind it that you can see, and you can pretty much read their dance and figure out where they're telling the other bees to go. But they use the direction of the sun and how far away it is. So, like, the more they waggle, the further out it is. And they can even do like height. So, like, if flowers on a tree, say, and it's up high, the bee will know that and be able to communicate that. Or whether it's down on the ground, like white clover, they'll know where that patch is and they'll be able to communicate that with other
That's
bees. So I
fascinating.
would think that they could communicate how to use an extra floral nectary.
That's fascinating. They're brilliant. They're absolutely brilliant.
They really are.
I can't believe it. So, what got you connected to the honeybees?
I kind of fell into my lap, really. Um, as a kid, we grew up on our family's farm, and there was usually always a hive of bees around. I was told to stay away from them because they were dangerous. So, I paid attention to that, and I didn't go near the bees. But I was all interested in horses and chickens and gardening, and I always had a big garden, and never really paid attention to the bees, other than Great Uncle Tom would give us a jar of honey every now and then, because he was the beekeeper. And so throughout my teenage years, I got more interested in horses and the chickens, and then he died, and I inherited some of his horses, and his wife, Aunt Esther, I really have to credit with getting me interested in honeybees because she went, "Hey, there's still habit bees around. Do you want to like check it out and see what's going on? You can have all of the equipment that we have, and if you want to take that over, that would be kind of cool." So I think I was like 14 or 15 at the time, and I don't know, that kind of sounded cool, fascinating, and a little bit dangerous,
Which
but
is
low
even
key
more
dangerous.
fascinating.
Yeah. Like, I could stick my hand in a hive of thousands of stinging insects and maybe die, but maybe not die, and that's kind of thrilling.
So, did you get the beekeeper suit handed down?
Yep, I got a beekeeper suit handed down. I don't wear it because it's too big for me. Great Uncle Tom was pretty tall, but I still have it, and I still use his smoker, which is pretty cool. And I think some of the beekeeping equipment is still around that he had. That was a while ago, though. So a lot of it has been used and abused and cycled out of my regular equipment cycle. But uh, so that was in the fall of like 2006 or 2007. And that spring, my dad and I decided to take a look in the hive and see what was going on. And there were no bees in there. So the hive had died. And I was kind of a little bummed out. I don't know why, because I had never worked with the bees before. Um, but I'm like, yeah, it'd be really kind of fun to just try it out. If Great Uncle Tom could do it, certainly I could do it. Um, so somehow I convinced my parents to get another hive of bees. So we got another hive of bees that spring, and same day that we went up to Draper's up by New York. One of my friends had a swarm in her yard of wild honeybees, and so suddenly I had two hives. I didn't know anything about catching a swarm, but it was successful. So it was kind of like I got my feet wet the very first day.
Wow. So how did you get your first replacement hive? Where do you go for a hive?
Yeah, so there's some companies that sell bee equipment and bees. So they'll either come as like a package in a box that has a lot of screening on it, about 3 pounds, or you can buy what's called a nuck, and that's basically like a halfway started hive. It has a couple frames of bees and brood, which are baby bees, and a little bit of honey, and you put it into a bigger box, and then you manage that. So that's the way we went. Was we got like a partially raised hive and brought it home, which is fun to have in your car. um, Got to
I
make sure
bet.
that you have a
What
lot
a
of
buzz.
screening around the hive so that you don't have loose bees flying in the car. um,
Oh my gosh. What an
so
adventure,
that's
right?
all. Yeah, that's always a little nerve-wracking to drive with that many bees in your car in a closed space. But I've done it lots of times, and it's
You're
actually
going
kind
to
of
do it
fun.
lots more times. When you got your first hive and your first hive died, are you able to then use that same box, the same hive, or do they create their own next one?
So it kind of depends on the situation and what they died from, but generally you can use the same box that they make their home in, but there's like wooden slats you put in a hive, which maybe we could do another episode on of beekeeping equipment. But they're called frames, and sometimes you can reuse them, but sometimes not. And they build their comb on the frames, and then you
Okay,
can take it out and see what's going on. But a lot of times I clean that off and just start over again with them. Because
perfect.
really, the honeycomb is a skeleton for the bees. So just like we have our skeleton that keeps us looking like what we look like, that's what honeycomb really is for them. That's their structure, that's their body. So they have physical bodies, of course, that go out and collect the pollen and the nectar, but they have to put it somewhere. So kind of think of like the fat and muscles on ourselves. That's kind of their fat and muscles is the honey and the pollen that they collect, and they got to put it somewhere. So they need a skeleton to put it on.
That's really cool. I never ever thought about it like that.
Yeah, it's really kind of fascinating.
Wow, it really is fascinating. Oh my gosh. So let's talk about them pollinators again. The plants. So on your guidebook, I saw that you have photos of different flowers in your garden. And you've recently moved. So have you moved those plants to your new home?
So most of the plants I haven't moved to my new home, so I kind of started completely over again, which is kind of cool because I could take some of my own advice of like how to place the plants, and like one of the things I suggested was to create a permanent water source. So we created a pond in the backyard. And most of the plants that I planted out front, bees like, so echinacea, daisies, roses. What else did I plant? I forget the name of some of them, but the bees were just so thrilled this year with
I'll
all of
bet.
the plants that I've planted. Even like mint, they loved mint.
Mhm.
They like hummingbird mint. I have so many different kinds of plants that they just absolutely loved, and it was fun to see them enjoying it.
That is really neat. On your guidebook, page one is a survey for you to take, for us to take of our own yards to find
Hmm.
out how well we're actually helping the pollinators. So
Hmm.
I highly recommend, I'll put the link in the descriptions of this video to your website. And I think everyone should check out that survey um, to see what we can do better at helping our little honeybees be.
Actually, kind of a cool survey. I'd probably revise it now that I've experienced a little bit more life, but the idea of the survey would remain the same basically, is because without flowers, like a continuous supply of flowers, bees kind of starve. Even native pollinators like bumblebees and mason bees. Like mason bees, for example, they only fly 150 yards away from where they were hatched. So that's what, 150 feet, 3 feet in a yard. That's not that far.
No.
So if they don't have flower resources, they're not going to be able to make the next generation of bees. So in populated neighborhoods like you live in, that's why it's even more important to have everybody having some sort of flower that they like so that they can fly a little bit, like 50 feet this day, and be able to have something to eat, and then be able to fly 75 feet that direction, and uh, just be able to have a continuous flow of things to eat, and even the time of year that things bloom. So, like, I have crocus that are going to bloom really early in the spring. The bees are really going to like that when nothing is out. Dandelions are a really important source of nectar and pollen for bees. So I always encourage people not to pull out all their dandelions because
Yeah.
it's actually really important for them. Or like clover that blooms in late spring, early summer. And then you have a lot of your trees blooming in the spring. So what about like late summer when a lot of stuff isn't blooming? That's where like your coneflowers and daisies and mums and other plants like that come into play. That provides a little bit of extra nourishment for them. Um, and so it's just important to be able to eat. So like we eat 3 times a day. You can kind of think of the bees eat 3 seasons out of the year. They need breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They need spring, summer, and fall. So there's a lot of different aspects to think about that we can't necessarily control, but we can influence a little bit.
What do bees do in the winter?
So bees eat the honey that they produce. A lot of beekeepers take most of the honey. I make sure that my bees have enough to make it through. So they all clump up and together they like hold feet and buzz their wings and keep warm and they eat honey. So the honey is giving them energy to flap their wings and survive. So if they don't have any food, that's a problem. They can't stay warm.
And so that's why we can see bees on a warm winter day.
Yep, so bees don't like to fly anything under 50 degrees. So they're all
Me
curled up in their
neither.
hive, but when it gets to be about 50 degrees and it's sunny, you can see them flying out and they're just going on their poop flights because they won't poop in the hive generally. So they absolutely love having a warm day here and there.
That's awesome. So, as a beekeeper, what's some of the fun things that you've experienced?
You know, bees are really smart, and I think that's probably what keeps me going is the humor of bees. Bees can recognize faces, so if you happen to piss them off, they have pretty good memory.
Uh-oh.
I found that out through experience.
So you had said before that you love when they land on you. And how do
Yeah, I
you
do.
get a bee to land on you and not sting you?
So again, bees are really smart, so they'll remember faces. So they've generally associated me with not harming them, and they know that I take care of them and interact with them to some extent. So on warm days and during the season, I'll go out and just stand near the hives and see how they're doing. And a lot of times they'll recognize me and they'll come over and they'll like land on my hand and walk around, or they'll land on my shoulder and just coming to say hi. They're not being aggressive or anything. Totally, I know if they're mad at me because they'll come over and they'll ding you on the head and it feels like you're getting dive bombed, and that's time to back up and move away. It's like,
Oh my
okay,
God.
but most of the time they're just there to say hi, and they're just friendly little creatures and they're really cute. So I just
Well,
like when they sit on my finger and take a picture, and it's just, they're cute and fuzzy and it's
they're
fun.
cute. They're cute and fuzzy until they send you to the ER, right?
Right, right.
Let's talk about let's talk about the love-hate affair with your honeybees.
Yeah, so luckily I haven't been sent to the ER yet, but I've been close. So maybe 2, 3 years now. Noticed I kind of got bigger reactions when I'd get stung. It wouldn't matter if I got stung 8 times or 1 time. Didn't matter if it was like my feet or my arms or my head, but like I would get puffy everywhere and my face would get really puffy and it would look like I was binge drinking for a week or got punched in the face or something, and I wouldn't have like a nose and my eyes would just be little slits, and I really wouldn't feel good for a couple days. So uh I thought maybe it was time to ask a doctor what was going on, and of course they were like, you should probably see an allergist because you're probably allergic, but it doesn't seem like you'd get allergic all of a sudden. So, an allergist confirmed that yes, I am highly allergic to honeybees.
So
It's
you're
kind of
getting
hilarious.
it is hilarious. I mean, it's completely ironic. Thanks universe, right?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
apparently it's not that uncommon if
But
you're a beekeeper and you repeatedly get exposed to honeybee venom. You can either get like desensitized to it, or you can develop an allergy. And I'm apparently on the developing an allergy side. So the remedy for that, luckily they didn't say that I had to give up beekeeping because
mm-mm,
that wouldn't have gone over too good.
mm-mm.
So now I'm in the phase of getting venom immunotherapy, which is supposed to be really effective against desensitizing your body so that you don't get like a full anaphylactic shock anytime you get stung.
I
So we'll
totally
see how
want to
that
talk.
goes. I should be up to my maintenance dose by the time beekeeping starts this year. Um, so that's exciting. Probably not too many people are real excited about getting poked with a needle every week, but they know that I'm the crazy beekeeper and they know me in the allergist office now, and they're like, "Oh, how are you doing? How are the bees doing?" And so it's been an experience.
That is quite an experience. I'd love to talk to you next time about it's fascinating to me that we use bee venom for the allergy injections
Mm-hmm.
for what you're allergic to, which is the bee venom, which you're
Yeah.
working with anyway. So it's really about, like, I guess, the fine tuning of
Mm-hmm.
how you create it into your system.
Yeah, so I think right now I'm up to like a third of the strength of what a normal bee sting is.
Okay. Working your way, working your
Yeah, I'm
way
working
up,
my way up.
working your way up. So, we have about 7 more minutes. So I want to ask you one more thing, two more things actually. Um, what made you write a book about the bees and master in sustainability for humanity, really?
Well, I guess it was, I ended my bachelor's degree and didn't really want to go into the real world yet, so I thought I'd delay that a little bit and go to school some more. And then I really wanted to do something with bees and how we operate and connect with them. So luckily all of my advisors were very supportive and they were like, well, you could write like a guidebook of like different flowers and what people could do in their own homes to support pollinators. So that was how that project got started. Maybe someday it'll turn into like a bigger book, or I'll get around to updating the website a little bit more. But it's kind of a work in progress that I didn't have to end it when my schooling ended. I can continue with it. Um, haven't had a lot of time since then to really do much with it, but it's cool to have it and that it exists. And it was a lot of work to write.
It's
Took a
very
while.
informative. It's very informative. I love looking through it. Um, I love the pictures. They're pretty, of the flowers and stuff. And I really think that the survey is extremely valuable. So I look forward to someday you updating that with your more knowledge. Um, so what's your alchemy with the bees? What do you create other
I
than
do a lot of
yeah.
different things. There's a lot of, like, of course, I do honey and have jars of honey, but I like to do things with the wax. So a little show and tell that this is a piece of honeycomb out of one of my hives. Kind of special because it has a queen cell, so like the queen is literally the queen of the hive. So that's like the area that she would be born and develop in. It's kind of a fake one because the side is empty on the back, but it's cool. It's a cool example to show people
So
that
she has her own
this is what,
apartment.
yeah, she has her own apartment when she's growing.
Okay.
So this is a piece of honeycomb, like actually that you find in hives. A lot of times it's a little bit later. This is where like all of the baby bees are hatched, so it's a little bit darker. But it's really cool to see like the complex structures that bees do. But so I take this out of the hive and I wash it, or I get the honey out of it more than likely. And then I melt this into this. So isn't it amazing that this turns into
Yes.
something that looks like this?
Are you able to eat the hive?
I mean, you can eat the honey and you can chew on the wax like chewing gum. Um, and you can technically eat bees. They're a good source of protein, but uh, their stingers are a little sharp. But some cultures eat bee larvae, so like after they're hatched from eggs. Some cultures will dig into the hive and eat the larva and the wax for protein.
Okay.
So then from this little wax block, I can make like different crafts with it. So this is a candle I made a couple years ago that's kind of cool. But I've done like little figurines and other kinds of candles. But basically, you have like a whole from hive to candle situation going on here.
That's really cool. So, beeswax candles are absolutely my very favorite candle. And the reason being is there's a couple reasons. They're super high vibe. I love using them. I don't have one right now. I had a